Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Coffee with Jim and James. James, another beautiful day in the studios in Florida. Before we bring our guest in for this groundbreaking, I'm going to say groundbreaking episode. We'll get into that later. But James, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. We got a cold front came in today. I feel like Stuart Saulters up there in DC just freezing. You know, I need my petticoat, I think. I don't know. Do we have petticoats? Is that a thing anymore?
I think that was in the 1800s, but we'll just leave it alone.
The overcoat. No, it's cold here in Texas today. I'm thankful for natural gas.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. How about that for a plug, Stuart?
I like it. Product
He's always
placement.
down. Stuart Saulters joining us again. Is this 2 or 3, Stuart? I can't remember. I was trying to. It seems
This
like
is
we spent
2.
a lot of time together.
Is that it? Just 2?
Yeah.
We won't talk about that though. I thought this was the record breaker. Stuart joins us again. Always a pleasure, sir. How are you today?
I'm good. I am good. So it is actually a warm day in DC. So
Switched wallets there. I see. I like it. I'm glad somebody. Well, here's the funny thing, and it's totally Texas. Is yesterday it was 71, Saturday it was 83, and today it feels like 19.
That's a drop.
So
that's
a pretty big one. Yeah. So, man, welcome back to the show. I think we've got some cool topics. We were, again, the pre-show's where it's at always, but we can't ever share that. You know, maybe later we'll bring it behind the scenes. But in the pre-show, I was excited about some of the topics. Jimmy, you want to just trot us on down the line?
I would love to. And actually, we're going to get into a subject that it's on a lot of people's minds right now. And I would call it the natural gas market and the impact that it's having on, public gas utilities. And anybody that's been looking at the news, whether it's natural gas, whether it's crude, whether it's whatever, a lot of people are seeing a lot of uncertainty. And today, in early March, we just popped above, opened this morning at 501 for an M, which is 1,000 cubic feet of natural gas, dropped a little bit down to 488, but we're seeing a lot of fluctuations, and we're seeing a lot of that. Stuart, the impact that is having on our public utilities and municipalities, thoughts about that? What are folks doing about that?
Yeah, just a couple quick thoughts. And again, always enjoy being on with y'all, enjoy the conversation, enjoy the coffee. But I think, I don't know, I like the mug. Good. You guys are good at the product placement, natural gas, coffee mug.
They're over there too.
It's weird if you go to Jimmy's house just for, lunch or dinner or something, he has that on the wall. I think it's just strange in his kitchen.
It never comes out. No,
he's in his dining room.
The kitchen's over there.
Oh.
So I'm like in a vestibule looking out into the yard or an
the
area.
Lanai. Sorry, Stuart. That's where we have a plan to these things.
That's all right. Now, so the couple of points I wanted to make on this particular topic when it comes to natural gas markets is, and maybe just one point to foot stomp, is just the difference of the public utility versus the investor-owned utility. There are a couple of gas co-ops, and they would probably fall into this bucket too. It's just the resources that our members have and just the challenge it is to manage keeping costs low, which is their goal, which is their aim, but just managing that with all the volatility of the market. And we didn't, and like I said, we didn't ask for it. I think when you think about what's happening, in Ukraine and Russia, there's just all these things that impact the markets. And so I think for us, we like to talk about and work with policymakers on how can you make it as stable as you can, kind of take out some of that volatility. And that's kind of the goal. And one of the topics one of the things we've been working on these past few weeks it just seems to be a lot of volatility in the markets.
Stuart, when we first talked about this, this was a couple of weeks ago. The war hadn't broke out over there. So we were just talking about the volatility, and I think leading up to it, we kind of, partially knew what might be going on. So some of it was that, but it was kind of timely. I mean, we go back and think about having that conversation 2 weeks ago, and then now we're having the conversation on this show. Is it a little bit of we just got to weather the storm a little bit, or is it, like you said, is there anything, really other than keep your eyes open and get through it?
So I think there is some opportunity for the U.S. to take a look at how much gas they produce, natural gas they produce. I think there's probably some opportunity for us as a country to think about our policies and its impacts on natural gas production. Yep. And so that would be the one part I encourage folks to look at. I think there was actually an incident in January where the commodity exchange, the NYMEX, saw some funky market activity.
Yeah.
And so I think that is also an opportunity for policymakers to look at and say, hey, again, like I said, recognizing that there's things you can do as a utility. You can hedge prices, you can go into long-term contracts, prepays is a term tossed about these days. And so there are tools, but just recognize, like I said, our members may not have the resources to employ some of those big complex gas buying strategies.
Yep. And from my past, like my CenterPoint Energy days, I know that we were very robust with having a lot of hedges, and then all the way down to GDD, gas daily, and buying it that way, spot market, and then blending them together. And also a lot of people don't really realize too, is that, for lack of a better term, gas for utilities, municipalities, is a pass-through. The money's made on the transportation of the gas, for the most part. So a lot of people say, oh, natural gas prices are going up, you utilities must like it. And we're like, no, we really don't, because when the gas prices go up, you take your thermostat and you turn it down because it's really expensive. I mean, $2 an M, $1.80 an M, that's good for everybody. And, the return for the utilities, lack of a better term, is, on the throughput. So anyways, it's just a little bit there. I think it is a fascinating subject. I think it definitely warrants people to become consciously competent to understand all that's involved with it, or at least a little bit of it, that there's a lot of ebb and flows to it, and a lot of connecting the dots, because it's not just the things that are happening in the Gulf states that are feeding a lot of this. It is a worldwide market, especially LNG. When we have tankers being shipped overseas, those are done on contracts. Those are businesses, and what they contracted a year or 2 years ago, they still have to hold forward. So all of a sudden, we're sending LNG over. But anyways, it's an interesting, very interesting topic. Look at James. He's like, oh, here they go. They're gonna.
I've never felt.
I think that's probably enough, because Stuart and I could probably go for 3 hours on that subject.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I have no clue what you're talking about. But I'm honest and I'm learning. I'll listen to you. I could not get in that conversation. Y'all are. Okay. Y'all are
one more I got to throw in there, just because you mentioned the LNG, and maybe you need to take another break, James, so Jim and I can talk. So, APGA's actually had a little bit of a change of heart when it comes to LNG. When the big LNG export started going out, I guess that was around the shale boom, right? 2012 or so. Yep. APGA actually was not as supportive of LNG exports, just knowing that that's going to have an impact on prices here domestically. Since then, we've recognized there's plenty of natural gas to go around, so let's all just use it both domestically and internationally, because it's clean. And so if we as a world are going to meet some of our environmental goals, wouldn't you rather use natural gas? But now it's almost, we're almost having to rethink. We're not going to go against LNG exports just because of that environmental benefit, the affordability, countries, third world countries, wouldn't you rather have natural gas versus, wood or coal or whatever that they're using? And so, but we want to have the conversation with policymakers to say, send it overseas, but recognize if you're not producing enough here domestically, you're going to impact price for Americans. And so let's all have a part. There's plenty to go around. Pass it to everybody. And so, we just want to make sure that folks don't lose sight of the importance of LNG exports and helping countries, and also geopolitical diplomacy. But also, we need gas here too, natural gas here.
We do. Well said.
Wow.
All right.
Well,
come back,
well
James.
said, Stuart.
Come on in, James.
Hey guys, fascinating. I mean, really, I am learning. I'm an open book there. I think everybody knows that. It's interesting for me to hear, that's things that I have no clue about that are going on that is very, very important. So, hey guys, let's take a quick break and we'll come right back.
Sounds good. Coffee time.
Hey y'all, Stuart Saulters from the American Public Gas Association here. I'm grateful to Jim, James, and the Coffee with Jim and James team for letting me drop in. I want to tell you some exciting news that will impact the public natural gas utilities across the country. Last November, President Biden signed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which enacted a $1 billion grant program. This money will be just for municipal or community-owned utilities to repair, rehabilitate, or replace distribution pipelines or to acquire equipment, with the goal being to 1. Reduce incidents and fatalities, and 2. Avoid economic losses. The Notice of Funding Opportunity, sometimes called NOFO, is yet to be issued and probably won't for a few more months, but because it was in the legislation, we do know what PHMSA will be considering in the applications. 1. The risk profile of the existing pipeline system, including the presence of pipe prone to leakage. 2. The potential of the project for creating jobs. 3. The potential for benefiting disadvantaged rural and urban communities. And 4. Economic impact or growth. Myself and my APGA colleagues are communicating frequently with the PHMSA team to make sure this grant program is a success. Be on the lookout for more from us. Until then, go to apga.org for the latest. If you have any questions or want to talk more, I won't try to give you my email address. Too many opportunities for mistakes with my name being spelled weird, plus my southern accent. So just message me on LinkedIn and we can connect that way. Again, thanks to Jim and James for letting me get this message out about this great opportunity to improve our country's pipeline infrastructure, making it safer for the public and the environment. Take care, y'all.
Well, we're back. James, what was that?
Amen. That was, this is going to sound really funny and pretentious, but I kind of see this as the kickoff of season 3 of our show, which again sounds really pretentious. Stuart, welcome to season 3. It's not like Ozark or anything like that. It's not as dark and dirty as that. It's really what we're doing is we are changing up the show a little bit. And what we thought about this past year is how can we really do a better job for our industry out there? It was great what we created, but there's a ton of podcasts. There's a ton of content out there. We can do all that. But how could we give back to our industry? And we thought about we can donate our time and our audience to causes that we really need to be promoting. And so one of the first people we thought about was Stuart and APGA over there, and really shining a light. These are no way ads. Our goal is to really shine a light in our industry where it needs to be. And so that was our first one. That's our first attempt at it. We'll see how good we get at it. All right, Stuart. Stuart studied all day that day and delivered it like a pro.
He did
just like he needed to.
And James,
just like he was called upon.
Yeah, and let me just add, we did this special day with Stuart in the middle there, but going in the future, we could have two totally separate guests. Could be
You bet.
SGA.
And so our goal is to, again, it may not even have one for every episode, but to make them special so that APGA has a platform, or AGA, or SGA, or whatever. So whoever needs a message put out and really put it in front of folks. So we were happy to work with Stuart on the first one. Man, record-breaking, groundbreaking content, Stuart.
I'm just impressed. Y'all got 3 seasons. Nobody's canceled you.
I'll tell you what. Having been someone who's seen every one of them myself, I can't feel. That's exactly how I feel.
No, well, I do appreciate the platform and the opportunity to get the message out, both through the little groundbreaking clip as well as in this longer episode, expound a little bit on that PHMSA Grant Program, which I highlighted for y'all in that little clip. It is a great opportunity. I think when you look at the ways public utilities can get funds to repair their infrastructure, to improve it, make it safer, make it more environmentally friendly, there's not a lot. And so having the government partner with us, extend the opportunity to get money, it's awesome. And so we're definitely working hard to educate our members on that opportunity, let them know what's out there. There's not a lot that they can do right now. We're all kind of waiting on PHMSA to issue the notice of funding opportunity. But when that comes out, it's going to be a mad rush to get applications in. I will say one of the things we tell our members, and hopefully some utilities are watching us on this podcast and are listening, let them, help them understand that be thinking about projects that you could use this money for. Is there a pipe replacement project, cast iron? That's kind of the term tossed around the most, but there's early vintage plastics that you could use this money for to replace. There's bare steel, uncoated steel. So think about those projects and be thinking about what work, pre-work that you could do. A couple of the criteria that the government is looking at is this pipe in low income areas, or does it service low income customers? Is it in a more rural place or a more urban place, which I guess that's everywhere, but that's what they put in the bill. That's what they put in the legislation. And so kind of be thinking about that, be thinking about, are there jobs that could be created by you getting this money to execute these projects? And then also too, one of the things that's in the bill, I think PHMSA and I think most people are wanting to use the money to replace pipe, but there's also another caveat to the bill, in the legislation that says, or purchase equipment. And so be thinking about ways that you could use this grant money to purchase equipment to meet that specification or those characters that they list out, help the economy, avoid incidents and fatalities, help the environment. I know it's burdensome to apply for a grant, some paperwork you got to do, hopefully not a lot, and that's what we're working with PHMSA to make sure it's not a lot. But at the same time, I've definitely told people, if you've got an idea, you're willing to put in a little bit of work, go for it. What's the worst that can happen? They tell you no.
Yeah, and let me ask you just a clarifying question. So this has passed. So this is something that is passed, and it's just now in the details. And second question is, how much money are we talking about in this whole bucket, so to speak?
Yeah, no, so it has passed. This was in the bill that President Biden signed last November. So the money is out there. Yeah. And that, there's wonky terms, authorized, appropriated. Needless to say, it's out there. It's ready to be spent. And so it's $1 billion. So 200 million.
With a B.
Billion.
With a B. Billion.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah. So 200 million for 5 years.
Okay.
And it's Sure, we can probably, I know, Jim, you definitely can think about the utilities that can spend that much, not $1 billion, but spend a lot of money replacing cast iron pipe or replacing pipe. And so each utility, the most they can get is 125 million. And so to me,
still right.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, there's a handful of utilities that can spend that much money. But there's still a handful that don't need that much. And I think there's enough, maybe I'm naive in saying this, but there's enough to go around and to make a really good improvement to really improve our nation's infrastructure, especially in the utility space.
And Stuart, one last question on that. Just it made me think. So obviously you almost need to think of this like a project, project by project basis, because it could be other things within that project that is funded under it as well, or is it only like the pipe? I mean, in other words, if I'm doing a pipe replacement, is it all things around that project that could be covered, or is it only the equipment used in it, or could it be the services and other things like on a project by project basis? And that's probably the little bit of we don't know yet. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, details to be worked out. I think again, cool. I mean, go for it, and that's what I've encouraged our members to do is put it in there, and it's include engineering costs, include GI,
new hires, right? Yeah. Whatever resources you need to get. That's what I was wondering. I'm familiar with grants in other spaces and areas. So again, to me, it's always like by project a little bit. We're going to do this project here or this series of projects, and here's what we need to accomplish it. And it's kind of more bundled in. Very cool.
Yeah. One of the things I was going to say real fast was having a conversation with a couple of folks is maybe you need to improve your GIS to help show this grant money is going to help this part of your county. Well, that costs money to improve GIS, but so you invest in that. Yeah. Now you're fortunate to get the grant program. So the money you would have had to spend on replacing the pipe, as an example, you can now shift that over to fix your GIS and get it up to snuff. And now you've got the federal government helping you out, actually replace the project. So looking holistically at a budget as a city, I think is a better way to think about it.
So they just call you directly, Stuart, and you work these grants up.
How do they find out more?
Custom?
No. We're going to help as much as we can, just as a trade association, and just recognizing resources are limited. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's your city. You're going to have to put in a little bit of elbow grease, get that application submitted. But by all means, we want to be resourceful, point people to the right direction. But yeah. The city's got to apply for it.
Huge opportunity. And Jimmy, if that doesn't make sense of why this was the first of that spotlight that we did. I mean, really, when I heard Stuart and I had a meeting, I don't know, months ago, and I said, man, if you had just 2 minutes to tell the world something, and he goes, man, I got it. I mean, and then when I heard about it, I was like, we're going to need a little bit more than 2 minutes, but I think it's a good place to start.
I think a couple takeaways just to wrap that one up. The membership of the APGA, the value of learning about these through the membership and being members and all that. And I'll have to say, from my perspective, I have never heard of an operator from coast to coast, top to bottom, that has ever said to me, my system is perfect. I don't need any upgrades.
I don't need any more resources. Yeah.
Well, so anyways, I again encourage all the audience that is applicable to reach out.
And Stuart, I just think about all the projects that are already planned for the next 5 years, at places, and you're like, would you like help to pay for those that you're already planning to do, or do you just want to write that check yourself? So, I think of those that are just one-to-one kind of thing. So that's, man, what an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, a lot of the projects are, in a rate case or rate base. So I mean, this is a good thing all the way through to the constituents that are actually paying the.
Stuart, do you want to come back once a month and talk about this program?
I can. Well, I gotta correct Jim though, because our guys are not for
I do that all
profit.
the time.
So we don't get the rates.
I do that all the time.
So we don't get the rates. We don't get the rate
I'm sorry. Yeah,
cases.
no, I'm sorry. I'm a
Get it twisted,
investor
Jimmy.
utility, recovering investor utility. I'm sorry. That's what
There
I'm
you go.
Sorry.
for over
We'll
a
pray
decade.
for you. We'll pray for
Oh,
you. No.
Okay.
hey now.
I have an
Just kidding.
APGA sign up right here that I go to it every day, and I give it a little.
Just kidding. We love all operators
Yes. No. Absolutely.
at Energy World Net.
No, I definitely appreciate the investor-owned utilities. Just it is a little different from the structure, and I think and no doubt we do have a handful of public utilities that are governed by PUCs, but I think that whole not-for-profit thing is universal.
Oh,
but I think too, the point being is you got a 30-year plan to replace all your cast iron pipe, or hopefully sooner than that, but 30 for instance. Now you get this money. You can either use the money you were going to use 30 years to do double, so you short it down to 15, or you just, finish faster.
Eat some of that cost. Yeah. Maybe some of your on-ramps a little bit, nicer because you can spend $125,000, $1 million on. Yeah. Wow.
James, we could use a little bit of that. But anyways, let me advance. I have a topic that's been on my mind for a while, and I think Stuart and I could probably geek out on it for a little bit. If you've been on any news platform anywhere, whether it's LinkedIn or one of the news outlets, you see a lot of things referring to RNG, renewable natural gas. And I would say as a total, I would say a lot of the people just don't understand it. So Stuart, can you bring RNG, renewable natural gas, into the conversation or help the audience understand exactly what that means? And let's dive a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, and just thinking back about the previous topic, the grant, the pipeline modernization, the grant to help improve the pipeline system, this RNG topic is related because if you see our utility infrastructure as moving natural gas and in the future, natural gas now, and then these lower carbon fuels like RNG, like potentially hydrogen, then investing in that asset now is so critical. And so RNG is, I called it a lower carbon fuel. That's kind of the term tossed about because what it is it's captured methane, captured mostly CH4, or it can be cleaned up to be CH4 from waste. And so there's multiple feedstocks out there that can be captured, cleaned up, and then injected into the pipeline.
Can you break those down, Stuart? Give us some examples. Some of us that aren't as smart as you and Jim. Or as
Stuart.
As Stuart.
So I'd say the big ones and kind of the ones that we're keeping an eye on because it just makes sense for our members is one, agriculture. And so if you think about, cows, chickens, pigs, there's all kinds of waste from those, either making milk from a dairy cow or making beef or pork, chicken. And the reason I think that makes sense for our members is because a lot of our members are located in rural parts of our country. And that's where there just happens to be a lot more agriculture. And so right down the road is a chicken plant or a pork producer.
Can I throw one at you too? Even on the vegetable side, when I ran the Food and Kindred portion up in the upper Midwest, the amount of waste that comes from just a corn packing plant. You have to think about it, millions of ears of corn go through it. The husk gets taken off and gets dumped. And they were actually years ago, this is 10, 12, 15 years ago, they were looking at ways to actually tap into that and put that back into the grid. And then there's, a few challenges with, but even in the vegetable side.
Yeah. And that's just, and all that's waste, right? And so you're taking that would just be methane emitted, CH4 emitted as it breaks down, capturing that, yes, you have to invest a little bit. You have to put in some digester, some equipment to clean that up. But once you do, it's natural gas. It's what you're burning in your home right now. And so you kind of take out a loop, if you want to call it that, take out a step by adding a few, but essentially you're reusing stuff that would be wasted.
Give me another one.
The other one, or a couple other, is water and wastewater. And so if you have, your wastewater gets sent to somewhere, sometimes it sits in a pond. As it sits, you get gases trickle off the top. So let's capture that, clean it up, and reuse it. Again, it makes sense for an APGA member because our members are munis, municipal utilities.
There may be a charge of that as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you got your buddy down the hall that's over the water department. Just talk to him. And then there's also municipal solid waste or trash. And so, again, often landfills, a part of a city utility. Yeah. And so just, capture the gases off those landfills, clean them up. I think the cool thing, and Jim, this may get your gears going, but what do you think about garbage trucks? There's a lot of garbage trucks that have natural gas engines. Yes. And so you're powering the garbage truck with the garbage.
And that's a whole new segment, Stuart, right now. We're seeing, and I know some of it's not fully new. Jim talks about it all the time. But some of the past year was, the agendas were full of people talking about just that, right? I mean, bringing a vac truck in and pulling that and recapturing it, using it to fuel their trucks, things like that. We've got companies that are coming out that can help people get there. And again, when I think about that, Stuart, as a project, I'm looking at a project and I can come back and say, I'm going to add these services in to recapture here, and work that into my grant, and now I've got those, that ability to meet my goals as well. And I was going to do the work already. That's where I think you can get a little creative too in this space. Not creative. That sounds bad.
No, I think you're right. I think thinking outside of the system. And I'm just going to add in, the landfills, in Florida, they're called mountains because that's about the only mountains in Florida, right? In southern Florida.
Gross.
And every night when you drive by them, you see flares burning. And a big landfill can produce 2,000 M a day, 3,000 M a day, potentially. I mean, that's enough to heat like a Minnesota home, 20 Minnesota homes for a whole year. I mean, that's a lot of natural, or methane, we'll call it. So if it can be put in a usable form, captured and put into the grid, wow, what a win-win, we're getting off that.
Yeah. I think I get frustrated with just the rhetoric of no longer needing pipelines, no longer needing utilities, no longer, needing that utility asset because the gas utility, because there's so much potential and we need to invest in that.
Infrastructure's all there.
And so why not take something that would just be emitted and reuse it? There, of course, I'm not going to deny you do get emissions from combusting because it's a thermal application, but at the same time, there's also scientific data that shows CO2 is not as harmful as methane. And so let's take the methane out of the air or potentially and put it to use.
Definitely.
I'll say last year, I've never seen a topic on more agendas. And even the on-ramp of this year and the committees I work in and boards that I sit on, like I'm seeing it again this year, like everyone is talking about this topic. So, worth revisiting down the road too. Stuart, our time has come to an end. But before we go, I just wanted to kind of give you the spot. I mean, this to be
Did you freeze up on us?
I think you did.
Stuart, I'm going to jump in. We're having a little technical difficulty, but Stuart, we are wrapping up. You have the floor. Is there anything you want to give it all away, say something to the audience in any capacity? The stage is yours, sir.
Yeah. So I should have prepped better for this. I've seen some of the latest episodes with y'all and know this is what you do here to close things out. But I will say, I think just to further distinguish public utilities in the utility sector and just recognize that we are not for profit. And so when you think about that market instability, recognize that our goal is to keep costs, keep natural gas cost at cost, there's no need to go above and beyond because we're not for profit. And so we're trying to do the best we can. So recognize, let's keep the markets as stable as we can. And then also too, kind of along those same lines, is we want to be a part of that clean energy future solution. So we want to have the assets. We appreciate the federal government willing to invest in our assets to transport natural gas now, transport RNG, transport potentially hydrogen. And so I think I've enjoy working for APGA because of our members, because of the quality of our members, just their desire to just treat their customers right and treat them well. And so I'm happy to support that and appreciate you guys letting me share that message.
Always.
Sorry, guys, I got a little excited and left early.
No. You're all right.
Sometimes I hit the wrong button.
You're back with us, brother. You're back.
Stuart, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure, man.
Always. Yeah. Thank you. We will see you again soon on here, Stuart. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next week on Coffee with Jim and James. Until then, stay safe.
This is where we dance out, Stuart. Y'all dance. Oh, Jimmy does, and we just watch.
It's awkward.
Just for a minute.